Remember believing in monsters under the bed? Or shadowy figures in your closet? As children, our imaginations are vast, coloring the world with wonder and, sometimes, with inexplicable terror. We're told these fears are just make-believe, products of an overactive mind. But what if some were real? What if the things that whispered from the darkness, or the friends only we could see, were far more than just childish fantasies? Tonight, we peel back the veil of innocence to revisit the unsettling shadows of youth, as 3 true accounts expose the terrifying experiences that can haunt childhood, long after the nightlights are turned off. Our first story introduces us to Leo, a bright but solitary 5-year-old. Like many children, Leo had an imaginary friend. He called him Mr. Grin. Mr. Grin, as Leo described him, was tall and thin, with an unsettlingly wide smile that never seemed to fade. At first, his parents, Sarah and Mark, found it endearing. Leo would recount Mr. Grin's silly stories, his playful games, always with that wide, unmoving smile. But then, Mr. Grin's influence began to shift. He started giving Leo unusual advice. Mr. Grin says I don't need to share my toys, Mommy. He says they're mine. Or, Mr. Grin says it's okay to push little Timmy, because Timmy took my block first. The advice grew darker, more unsettled. Leo once told his mother, with unnerving calm, that Mr. Grin said, sometimes, bad people need to disappear. And they always do. Sarah and Mark tried to dismiss it, blaming it on Leo's developing understanding of morality. But the true terror began when Mr. Grin started revealing things he couldn't possibly know. One evening, Leo's dad, Mark, frantically searched for his misplaced wallet. After an hour, Leo calmly pointed to a high shelf in the garage. Mr. Grin said it was there. He said you forgot it when you were getting the tools. Mark hadn't told anyone he'd been in the garage that day. The breaking point came during a family dinner. Leo suddenly stopped eating, staring intently at the empty chair beside him. Mr. Grin says we have to leave this house, he whispered, his eyes wide. He says the pipes are going to burst tonight, and the water will take everyone. Mark, frustrated, tried to reassure Leo, but Sarah felt a cold dread. They had been having issues with old, corroding pipes, a problem they hadn't mentioned to their son. Later that night, a catastrophic pipe burst flooded their basement, causing immense damage. That night, Sarah and Mark found Leo huddled in his bed, clutching a teddy bear. He was crying silently. Mr. Grin isn't nice anymore, he sobbed. He told me a secret. He told me he's been here a long, long time, even before we were born. And he knows everything that happens in this house. The sheer terror in Leo's voice, the cold, knowing gleam in his eyes when he mentioned Mr. Grin's ancient presence, terrified them more than the flood. They packed their bags that very morning. They never saw Mr. Grin again, but the memory of his perpetual, wide smile and the secrets he held, still haunts them to this day. Not all games are innocent. And not all playgrounds are safe. Sometimes, the places we associate with carefree joy can harbor secrets far older and colder than any child's imagination. The old Elmwood Park was a local treasure. Its towering trees, worn wooden benches, and classic metal swings had seen generations of children pass through. One summer afternoon, a group of friends, 8-year-old Emily, 10-year-old Daniel, and 7-year-old twins, Chloe and Jacob, were enjoying the last rays of sun. They'd played on the slides, chased each other through the trees, and were now competing to see who could swing the highest. As dusk began to settle, a strange chill descended upon the park. The swings, usually boisterous, became eerily quiet. Emily noticed it first. Her swing, which had been perfectly still a moment ago, began to sway gently, as if someone had just gotten off it. Then, a faint whisper brushed past her ear, too indistinct to make out words, but undeniably there. She looked around. The others were playing near the sandbox. Soon, Daniel saw it too. An empty swing, at the far end of the set, was swinging vigorously, almost violently, despite the lack of wind. And from it, he heard it, a low, guttural murmur, like several people talking at once, but again, no words. He called out to the twins, pointing. They froze, their faces paling. They'd heard it too. The intensified, seeming to come from all corners of the park. It was a cacophony of soft, breathy sounds, like many unseen mouths muttering secrets. Then, they saw the shadows. Not their own, distorted by the setting sun, but dark, elongated forms that moved independently, darting behind trees, flitting between benches, too quick to properly grasp. One shadow, particularly tall and thin, seemed to linger near the swings, stretching out as if reaching for the children. Terror seized them. They scrambled to leave, but as they ran towards the exit, the whispers grew louder, clearer, forming fragments of words. Don't leave. Stay. Play. Forever. The swings behind them were now creaking in unison, a chorus of rusty metal echoing the unseen voices. They bolted, not daring to look back, convinced something was chasing them. They made it out of the park, breathless and weeping. None of them could explain what they had seen or heard, but the shared experience, the collective terror, forged an unbreakable bond of fear between them. They never returned to Elmwood Park after dusk. And to this day, the sound of a creaking swing, or a faint whisper on the wind, can send shivers down their spines, reminding them that not all playgrounds are innocent, and sometimes, the games never truly end. And sometimes, the fear comes from within your own four walls, where you should feel safest. But what if the very structure of your home hides a presence, waiting just beyond a locked door? 7-year-old Lily hated the attic door. When her family moved into their new, old house, the one rule was, don't go near the attic door. It was on the landing of the second floor, a dark, heavy wooden door with a rusty, complicated lock that looked like it hadn't been opened in decades. Her parents said it was just storage, too dusty and old to be safe. But Lily knew better. She started hearing things. First, faint scuttling sounds, like mice, but these grew into something heavier, like something dragging itself across the floorboards above. Then came the thumping. A slow, rhythmic thud-thud-thud that seemed to echo directly into her bedroom at night. She told her parents, but they dismissed it as the house settling, or perhaps raccoons in the eaves. But the entity behind the attic door wasn't subtle for long. One night, Lily woke to a distinct scratching sound, right at the base of the door. It sounded like long, sharp nails dragging across wood, desperate and insistent. She pulled her covers over her head, heart pounding. In the morning, when she dared to look, there were faint, vertical scratch marks on the door, just above the floorboards. Then, things escalated. She would pass the door and catch a faint, sweet smell, like rotten flowers. And sometimes, she swore she saw the doorknob twitch. One afternoon, while her parents were out, Lily was playing quietly when she heard it, a soft click. She froze. The old, rusty lock on the attic door, which had always been securely fastened, was now partially undone. The heavy iron mechanism was disengaged, the latch barely holding the door shut. She stood there, trembling, staring at the slender crack that had appeared between the door and its frame, a sliver of utter darkness. She never saw what was behind the door, not directly. But the glimpses were enough. A flash of pale, papery skin. A long, spindly shadow that stretched under the door and moved towards her, and the breathing, slow, ragged, always just audible through the old wood. She would lie in bed, rigid with fear, listening to the shuffling and soft thumps from above, knowing that something was stirring, something that wanted out. Lily eventually convinced her parents to move, telling them the house was sick. They never truly understood her terror, never saw the scratches, never heard the breathing, never noticed the lock undone. But Lily knows. She knows that some things are better left undisturbed, especially behind perpetually locked attic doors. And she knows that even in the safest places, a child's fears can be horribly, terrifyingly real. These stories remind us that childhood, often romanticized as a time of pure innocence, can also be a crucible for our deepest, most primal fears. The monsters under the bed, the shadows in the park, the entities behind locked doors, sometimes, they're more than just make-believe. They are the unsettling truths that linger, shaping our understanding of terror for years to come. Have you ever experienced an unexplained childhood memory, something that felt too real for imagination? Share your own chilling tales in the comments below. We're always listening for whispers from the past. If these stories stirred the child inside you, hit that like button, subscribe for more true horror, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss our next descent into fear. Next, we venture into the wild, where civilization's rules no longer apply, and the true horrors are untamed. Until then, try not to look under the bed.